So again, this is the seminar for the sake of the recording. This is the seminar for how to pursue a relationship in a godly way. Again, whether we're here because we want to be in a relationship or just want to hear different perspectives, hopefully it is beneficial. Benny is going to help facilitate tonight. We do want this to be as beneficial as possible. And so we are going to have a Q&A at the end. The format for today will be, there will be some time to just share. Actually, Pastor Pete recorded a video for us. He wanted to be in person. It was actually his birthday yesterday. And so I think they took a mini family trip. But even in the midst of that, he thought it was important enough to try and film something. And so if you're connected with him on social media, go ahead and wish him a happy birthday, or I don't know, in the YouTube chat on Sunday or something, say happy belated. He turned 40. I know he doesn't look it, but he turned 40, the big 4-0. And so, but he did have some words to share for us. And then afterwards, just really wanting to be as specific and helpful as possible. So we will have time for Q&A. I want to say just two things before he shares. One is a lot of what we're going to be talking about tonight delves into how to walk as a Christ follower in this relationship area with wisdom. And so some of the things that we're going to share tonight, some of the things that we're going to talk about, it's not like if you don't do this or don't do this or that, then it's sinful. But this falls a lot under wisdom. What is wise and what is good for us to kind of absorb and take in and follow through. And so there are going to be some things I know for both Pastor Pete and myself, we do try to be as biblical as possible when we try to share these things. Even in terms of wisdom, we don't want to think in terms of earthly wisdom. We do want to think in terms of biblical and godly wisdom. So hopefully that comes out. But I am going to ask all of us to just consider it as well. Right? And so if we have questions, please feel free to ask them and get clarification, but also remembering that this is, again, in an area of wisdom, not necessarily like this is right or wrong. And so just please consider that throughout all of this. And then the second thing, which I believe Pastor Pete touches on toward the beginning, but really having that heart and that open-mindedness. Again, you may or may not agree with everything that's shared tonight, but that open-mindedness really to say, God, am I following the ways of the world or am I following you? And that's the kind of the big thing that we want to emphasize. Again, some of this is going to fall into wisdom, not whether it's right or wrong, and that's it just comes with the territory. But some of it, I'm going to ask us to even as we begin tonight, to say even for our own hearts and our minds, God, I want to be open-minded more so to hear from you and to follow you. That's what we want to do more than anything else. And so with that, we are going to go into tonight. Again, Pastor Pete's going to share some thoughts. There's going to be a few moments where we're actually going to pause the video and ask us to kind of take some time he's going to give some practicals. And so just some time for us to reflect on those thoughts before we continue on. And then after that, we'll have the Q&A. And so jot down questions as you're going through it. We'll open up the Slido toward the end, and then oh, there you go. Actually, you can see it right now. And so if you have any questions in response to something that even Pastor Pete or I share, you can just add those questions in the moment, so you don't forget it. And if other people have the same question, you can help with that as well. But yeah, that'll be the format for tonight. Any questions?
Hi everyone, Pastor Pete here, and I'm excited to be able to spend this evening at Access with all of you. I'm actually recording this beforehand because I can't physically be around to do the live stream with all of you tonight. I'm away with my family on a camping trip with a couple other families, and so, but really, I feel like this topic of relationships and preparing for marriage and things like that, I think this is so important that I just couldn't help and miss out on being able to share this with you tonight. So I'm pre-recording this, and really my goal, my heart tonight, and I think that Pastor Josh and I both share, the rest of the leaders share as well, is we want to try to give you some biblical wisdom that will help you and give you some guidance on how to prepare for a really good, healthy, Christ-centered dating relationship and ultimately marriage. And if you're here tonight, it's probably because you're wondering what the Bible has to say. You're wondering how you should pursue this. You're wondering, like, okay, what am I supposed to do? And so in a short time, I'm gonna do my best that I can to be able to share that with you. And I hope that in the coming, days and weeks and months, I hope I get to know more of you personally, especially because I know some of you are new to our church, you're new students on campus, or you've just gotten connected to our community. So I hope you're getting connected and having a good time with your life groups and whatnot as well. One thing about this is that I really believe Christian relationships should be different than the relationships that the world around us has. We shouldn't be doing everything exactly the same way. And the reason for that is, I think that dating relationships as Christians should actually be trying to prepare us for marriage, but in many ways, the modern dating world is actually preparing us for divorce more than it's preparing us for marriage. And so we want to try to get some good guidance here. We want to be aware that the way that our world approaches relationships is not necessarily going to help us. You look at what Paul says in Ephesians 4, he says, "Now this I say and testify in the Lord, that you must no longer walk as the Gentiles do in the futility of their minds. They are darkened in their understanding, alienated from the life of God, because of the ignorance that is in them due to their hardness of heart. They have become callous and have given themselves to sensuality, greedy to practice every kind of impurity." And, as you hear that, I don't think Paul's trying to be demeaning toward people who don't know Christ. I think he's just trying to be very honest about some of the issues that we see in the world, honest about the fact that we need guidance that's from God and that is going to set us on a good path. And so we should be learning to look to God and to our Christian community for that guidance. So there might be some things that I shared tonight. There might be some things in the Bible that you don't immediately agree with, that you think are unreasonable or extreme or outdated or things like that. And I think that's when we need to realize that sometimes our mindset, our attitude is shaped more by our culture than it is by our faith. And so tonight I want to share with you 6 principles and 6 practices that I hope will be both helpful in kind of like shaping your mindset as well as shaping your practice and your life and like the decisions you make and the things that you invest in. And I hope that'll help. So let's go ahead and get started with that. So principle number 1 that I want to share with you is to know your destination. And I don't know if any of you may have had an experience like this before, but when I was 12 or 13 years old, I remember that my mom actually signed me up for what's called an orienteering class, which means a class to teach you to find your way around in the woods and stuff like that. So I signed up for this class. I was actually pretty excited about it because I like doing, outdoorsy stuff like this. I like that a lot. And so I go to this class, and the first day, the teacher takes us out into the woods, and he says, okay, you guys go ahead, just go on ahead of me, go wherever you want. Don't worry, I'll find you. And so he sent us off into the woods, and me and all these other teenagers start just walking through the woods, not really knowing where we're going. And we walk for hours and hours, and eventually we realize, wait, we haven't seen our teacher in a long time. It turned out that he actually wasn't as good a tracker as he thought, and he lost track of us. And he had sent us out into the woods with no idea where we were going. We were lost for hours out in the woods in northern Michigan with like no civilization around us. And ultimately they had to send out search parties to come and find us and rescue us. And I share that story just because I think for many of us, we know that we want to be with someone. We know maybe marriage is like a thing that we want. And we probably even have people around us that say, hey, go for it, go on ahead. And they probably want to encourage us, and that's great. But when you send someone out into the world, especially with something as important as dating and relationships and marriage, when you send someone out and encourage them to pursue that, when they don't have an end goal in mind, when they don't know where they're going, that's actually really sending them on a fool's errand, and it's not going to do them any good. I think that starting a relationship without knowing where you're going is kind of like the situation that I just described. And also, like, just having the goal of like getting married by itself isn't really much better. Like starting a relationship saying, well, my goal is to get married, that's kind of like saying I'm going to start college and my goal is just to get a degree. All you get on the other side is you get a piece of paper and wonder why you're in so much debt. Like, that doesn't help anybody, right? Some of you, that's you. You're like, I don't know why I'm here. I don't know why I'm paying all this money. I don't know why I'm taking out all this debt. So we need to have a greater sense of intention around that. We need to have a greater sense of like, what's our destination, where we're going, what it is that we're trying to do. It needs to be much bigger than just getting married at the end of it, getting to be in that relationship. We need a bigger picture destination that we know that we're going for. And the Bible has, a lot to say about this, which thank God, because, when we look at the world around us, I think for many of us, if we're honest with ourselves, a lot of what we see a lot of broken relationships. We see a lot of things that haven't gone well. And for a lot of us, maybe all we have in our life is actually bad examples. And we're wondering, wait, like, is there any way to do this well? Is there any way for it to go better than what I've seen or experienced or what people have told me before? Like, is there any hope behind all of this? And thank God, the Bible actually has a lot to say about it. Ephesians 5:31-32 says this. It says, therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. This mystery is profound, and I'm saying that it refers to Christ and the church. I think what we can learn from this and from so many other passages in the Bible that talk about marriage is that marriage is intended to be this covenant relationship of holistic unity that reflects the union of Christ and the church. This is a unity that is physical, it is spiritual, it is emotional, it is sexual, it is financial, it is everything. It's about two people becoming completely united with each other. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful picture. But when we are pursuing that, we need to realize that when that destination, whatever it is, when that destination is clear for us, well, then the destination actually determines the route. When you know your destination, like let's say that I'm in the park and I want to go over here to the Platt Pavilion, I want to go by a number 1 here. Well, that's great. Like, that's where I want to go. And if I know, okay, right now I'm over here, I'm at the entrance to the park and I'm coming in, well, then I know that my route is clear. I can go from here, follow the path, and I know that it's going to take me all the way to where I want to be. If you don't know where your destination is, you can end up wandering all over the place, and it's not going to do you any good. You can start on a path that you have no idea where it's going to take you. At the end of it, it might actually leave you in a really bad place. These were all things that I really had to process through as I was a single adult, as I went through college, and as I started working. I had to figure out what was that destination that I was going for. What was I actually looking for in life and in relationship and in marriage? And just to share a couple of those things with you, like I'll introduce you here to my wife, Gina, just through pictures. But Gina and I, we have a great marriage. We're so happy together. I think that God has really blessed us with a wonderful marriage, wonderful family. I'm so thankful for her. And, when we got married, and here's a picture of our wedding day, I think both of us understood that the goal wasn't just to get married and have a nice wedding and then who knows what. Like, I think we both knew that there was actually something more that we were looking for in life beyond that. For myself, some of the things that I was looking for in married life was, of course, these biblical foundations we're talking about, this kind of covenant relationship and whatnot. But I was looking for something specific when I was thinking about a marriage partner. Some pastors I know, when they're looking for a spouse, they want someone who's gonna be like basically a co-pastor for them. Someone who's going to be just like super involved in the life of the church, and that's like the only thing that they're going to be involved in. But for myself, I don't know why, like I knew I was looking for a wife who actually had a vocation and passions and relationships and things outside the church. And that's something that Gina and I have, and that we're super thankful for. Gina does support me very much in my ministry in the church. She's involved in the leadership of our Covenant Married Couples Ministry. She's involved in the leadership of Building Blocks, our children's ministry. Super thankful for that. But I'm also so glad that she has her own calling as a nurse practitioner and as a professor at the University of Michigan. I love the work that she does with, she does a lot of work with training people to reverse opioid overdoses. These are a couple pictures of her doing those trainings here. Her clinical practice is at the homeless shelter downtown. Like I love the way that she loves and cares for her patients and the passion she has to care for a community that's in need. Like, that's awesome. And just as she supports me in my ministry in the church, and she takes that on as her own, I also am thankful I get to support her in her calling. I get to help her with her research presentations. I get to help her with building websites and with making research posters. I edit all of her articles that she writes. We get to really support each other that way. And I love that we get to have that kind of collaboration with each other. I also love it that we get to raise a family together. We knew that we wanted kids. We knew we probably weren't going to have a lot of kids, but we knew we wanted to have kids. And so, here's our son Nicholas with us, and we love him. He's 9 years old now. He's in 3rd grade. Amazing kid. And we love being able to raise him together. Even when we thought about married life and like things we care about, both of us really have a passion for evangelism and for hospitality. And so even when we're like looking for a place to live, we looked for places where we're like, okay, we want to have a home we can invite people into. We want to live in a neighborhood where we can share our lives with others and build strong relationships and friendships and share our faith with the people around us. We've gotten to do all that, and both of us knew, not in detail, but at least in the general idea of it, both of us knew that those were things that we were looking for and that were going to be important to us when we were looking for someone to marry. For you, as you're going through that, a practice that I want to recommend to you, as I've shared this principle of knowing your destination, is just to actually describe your destination. Take some time, and it's okay that you don't know every detail. It's okay that you can't describe the finest little pieces of it, but can you just start to write down, what is that destination for you? How do you define marriage biblically? How do you understand like the things that you're looking for uniquely that might be different from other people? When you start to describe that and write it down, it starts to become a lot clearer to you what it is that you're looking for in life. Along with that, as a resource recommendation, a good book to read would be Tim Keller's Meaning of Marriage. If you're looking for a way just to develop your biblical understanding of marriage and get a biblical vision of that destination, great book to read. Let's go on to our second principle next.
Actually, if we can actually take, okay, I'm going to say 40 seconds just to start doing what he had mentioned, just while we're in the moment. If you have anything that comes to mind in terms of how would you describe your destination? If you still have no idea what Pastor Pete is talking about, that's okay. Just write down, I don't know, what's your destination? But for some of us, maybe it's a good time for us to kind of stop and think and say, how would you describe, where do you want to end up? So about 30, 40 seconds, just to get some thoughts down while it's fresh, and then we'll keep going with the video.
The second principle that I want to share with you tonight is to be the right person before finding the right person. I think we spend a lot of our time when we're single just trying to figure out, who is that person going to be? Who am I going to date? Who am I going to marry? We're looking for that and trying to figure that out. But sometimes we never stop and think, like, wait, am I the kind of person that someone else would want to marry? Am I the kind of person who I need to be? The question I think we really should be asking ourselves is, who do I need to be to arrive at that destination that we were just talking about before? So the Bible has a lot to say about this, like about the kind of person we are. Proverbs 31:10 says, "An excellent wife who can find? She is far more precious than jewels." Proverbs 19:22, "What is desired in a man is steadfast love, and a poor man is better than a liar." You see, the Bible talks a lot about the kind of person that you are. And I think that so much of our preparation for a relationship needs to be not first in finding out who that other person is, but actually focusing a lot on who we are and growing into being that kind of person. The reason for that is that married life really requires a great deal of commitment and character and responsibility. These are like not sexy things to talk about, right? Like we'd probably rather talk about a lot of other things that are far more exciting. But to actually have a fruitful married life, you need to really know that your commitment to one another is strong. You need to know that the other person has good character. You need to know that you can that other person is going to take responsibility for you and for the family. Those things are huge. The reason is that the fruit of character and responsibility is trust. And when you're in a relationship with someone, whether it's when you're dating them or especially when you get to the point of marrying them, you need to know that that person is someone you can trust, that you can trust them with their commitment that you're making to each other. You need to know that you can trust them with the decisions they're making of how they spend their time. You need to trust that their financial decisions are for the sake of the family and not just for the sake of themselves. You need to trust that this is a person who you can trust with your secrets, with the things that are so deep and personal to you. That trust is huge. And if you don't have it, it's going to really mess you up. Now, that's great to think about for someone else, but are you that kind of person? Are you that kind of person right now? And are you growing into that kind of person, a person of commitment and character and responsibility, a person who can be trusted? These are things that, I had to realize the hard way when, different things happened. I've shared before with our church about how difficult it was when my wife gave birth to our son. And she was actually I thought she was going to die. In the process of actually after giving birth, I thought I was going to be on my own to raise my son. How important was it that my wife know she could trust me with the responsibility of raising our son? Either one of us could be taken out of this world at any time. Are you going to be with someone who can be trusted to take care of your children? These things are so huge. And so something I want to encourage you with right now as a second practice is take responsibility. With whatever you're involved in right now, take responsibility. How do you respond when things don't go well at school? Are you quick to blame circumstances or to blame someone else? Or are you quick to take responsibility and say, you know what? That was my mistake. I didn't study well enough. I didn't prepare well enough. I didn't make sure I understood the guidelines. I didn't communicate with my professor. That's on me. How about when it comes to our church community? Can you, with your life group, if you forget to bring the chips or something for refreshments, which I know we're not doing right now because of COVID, but if you forget something like that, are you quick to lay blame somewhere else or to kind of defer responsibility? Or do you say, I apologize, everyone, I'm so sorry. I was supposed to bring the chips tonight. I was supposed to bring the refreshments and I totally forgot. Do you take responsibility or do you defer or try to put responsibility on someone else? When there's an opportunity to serve, are you someone that says, hey, I'll help out, I'll take responsibility because this is a community I'm invested in, that I'm part of? With your roommate in your dorm or your apartment, do you say, I'm responsible for keeping this place clean. I'm responsible for taking care of my stuff. I'm responsible for cleaning up after myself. Are you a person who takes responsibility or are you a person who defers it? And so, be the right person before finding the right person. This next principle I want to share with you is so incredibly important, and it's that relationship with God comes first. Relationship with God comes first. Why is this so important? I remember when Gina and I first started dating. I had just, asked her out and we were starting to spend a little bit of time together. And I remember that at that time, I won't share every detail with you, but Gina said something to me that was probably one of the most painful, hurtful things that I had ever heard in my life, that anyone had ever said to me. And I remember when she shared this with me, I was just devastated. I didn't know how to react, but in the next couple of days, I basically couldn't function as a human being. I was so full of just a mixture of sadness and anger and all kinds of different reactions. And it was just really tearing me apart. I couldn't do anything at work. I was just a mess. And in that process, God really met me and brought me to a place where I was able to reflect on not only what Gina had said to me and how I was reacting, but when I was able to really reflect on the nature of the gospel message itself. And as I reflected on that and I thought about what Jesus had done by dying on the cross for me, and I thought about how Jesus had died for Gina too, and how like in this relationship we were able to experience the gospel together, the Lord brought me to a point where I could forgive her and where she could forgive me, and where we could just share our hurts with each other and we could experience the grace of God with one another. It was a really powerful experience. And the only reason that I think we were able to go through that and get through that really hard time at the beginning of our relationship was actually because of how each of us had learned to put our relationship with God first in our lives. You see, we're created to live in relationship with God in a way that we receive love and acceptance and purpose and security and affirmation and identity, like all these things that I think are these deep cravings in our hearts. We're made to live in relationship with God that way. And then when we receive that, because we trust, Jesus, you died on the cross for me and you saved me from my sins, you restored me to relationship with God. And when that's not just like a nice idea, but when that's like real, when it like hits you in your heart and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm a child of God. Like I'm accepted, I'm loved, I'm forgiven, I have a purpose to live for. Like when all of that takes root, it starts to deeply change you and the way that you engage in relationships with others. Paul talks about that change in Ephesians 4, verse 20 to 24, he says, "But that is not the way you learned Christ, assuming that you have heard about him and were taught in him, as the truth is in Jesus, to put off your old self, which belongs to your former manner of life and is corrupt through deceitful desires, and to be renewed in the spirit of your minds, and to put on the new self, created after the likeness of God in true righteousness and holiness." You see, when the gospel message takes root in us and our relationship with God comes first, it gives us this new life, this new self, this new foundation for our lives that just changes everything. And when we mature and we grow up in that, it gives us a foundation to have really healthy other relationships with people. And so think about that for a second. Like, who wants to date someone who's immature and insecure? Like, who wants to date someone like that? Like, if you're an immature and insecure, then you will seek security from your boyfriend or girlfriend or from your spouse. You'll want them to be your source of security. If you're immature and insecure, then you will be selfish and self-centered. You're going to make everything about you instead of being able to think about others and place their needs ahead of your own. You'll be easily manipulated if you're immature and insecure. Other people can manipulate you and use you and do whatever they want with you because you're just so insecure and immature. Like that's what happens. But on the other hand, when you're secure in your identity in Christ, well, then you'll be free to serve others selflessly, including your boyfriend or girlfriend or your spouse. Your sense of worth won't depend on your boyfriend or girlfriend's mood. Like, how they feel that day isn't going to make you or break you, right? You'll stand on your convictions and not on your boyfriend or girlfriend's opinion in that moment. Like, see, having that security, that maturity in Christ, knowing your identity in him, it really gives you a firm foundation. And the sad thing is, there are actually plenty of people out in the world who want to date someone who's immature and insecure because they know they can use you. They know that they can manipulate you and get you to do whatever they want you to do. There are people like that. We shouldn't be people like that. And we should be people who are placing our relationship with Christ first so that we can actually stand against that. And so practice number 3 I want to share with you is to develop your identity and security in Christ. Now, there are lots of ways you can do that. You can do that by simply practicing spiritual disciplines like reading the Bible and praying with others and for one another. A great book I recommend to you is by Neil Anderson. It's called Victory Over the Darkness. If you're really struggling with your identity and you're really struggling with insecurity and things like that, great book to teach you about your identity in Christ and be able to live out of that and stand upon that. And so really learn to put your relationship with God first and develop your identity and your security in Christ. The fourth principle I want to share with you is that community is critical. I know this is a big deal in our church. We talk a lot about community, but you only understand how important and how valuable it is, I think, when you start to get into a dating relationship or get ready for marriage or actually get married. You see, I really believe healthy dating relationships and marriages need community to succeed. Why? That seems almost like it doesn't make any sense. Like, if you have this other person, you have this close relationship, why do you need other community? Well, number one, because you need support when you're struggling in your relationship. Your relationship's not always going to go well. It's not always going to be like happy times and lovey-dovey and you getting whatever you want. Like, there are going to be times that are very difficult in your dating relationship or in your marriage, and you're going to need others to be there to support you during that time. Number two reason is that you need people to tell you when you're being a fool. Okay, this is huge. You need people to tell you when you're being a fool, who will be able to share that with you and be honest about that with you. Jeremiah 17:9 says, "The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately sick. Who can understand it?" That's the reality of our hearts. We don't like admitting that to ourselves because we want to think that we're all good. We want to think that our intentions are always pure. We want to think that we're hearing God clearly. Like, we want to think all of that. And yet it's amazing to me how often I meet people who, for whatever reason, whenever you ask them, like, what's God speaking to you, God always seems to be telling them to do the things that they themselves want to do. Whatever question comes up, whatever it is they're praying about, God always seems to tell them to do the thing that they want to do anyway. And it makes me realize, like, wait a second, it's so often that we're deceived in our own hearts and we're remaking God in our own image, and we're convinced that God just wants us to do whatever we want to do. And at that moment, we need people who can step into our lives and say, hey, you're being a fool. It's in fact really helpful if you can actually, even tell yourself up front and, like, admit to yourself, I am willing and able to deceive myself, so I need help from God and others. Let me give you just a second where you can say that for yourself. I am willing and able to deceive myself, so I need help from God and others. That's huge. You need to recognize that. And not only that, do you need people to tell you when you're being a fool, but you need people to practice the gospel with. You need people that you can actually just practice the grace of God by confessing to each other, by sharing with each other, by forgiving each other, by being patient with each other. You need people who can practice the gospel that way with you, or else you're kind of stuck. Like, you're just not going to be able to go anywhere from there. And ultimately, when you have that kind of community around you, well, they're going to help you. They're going to help you and give you guidance as you try to find that significant other. You try to build a great relationship. Song of Songs actually has great examples of this. If you've never read it before, I encourage you to read it. It's actually like a very passionate, sensual book of the Bible that's all about this deeply romantic relationship between a wife and her husband, and gives us a beautiful picture of that. But in that, I find it amazing that in a story that's about a romantic relationship between husband and wife, there's this refrain of other people, their community, coming in and talking to them all the time. So, for instance, in Song of Songs 8 verse 4, it says, "Promise me, O women of Jerusalem, not to awaken love until the time is right." Maybe you need community like that in your life, who will tell you, hey, don't awaken love before it's time. Maybe you're not at a healthy place for that yet. Maybe it's not the right time in your life. Like, can you be patient right now? Maybe you need a community like that can tell you that. At the same time, that community can be incredibly encouraging. Song of Songs 6 verse 1 says, "Where has your beloved gone, O most beautiful among women? Where has your beloved turned, that we may seek him with you?" You see, this young woman's friends, they want to help her find her husband. They're saying, let's look for him together. Like, do you have those people in your life, whether it's, women or men, people who you're saying, like, man, we're gonna help each other, we're gonna encourage each other, we're gonna pray together, we're gonna help each other in this pursuit of a relationship, of marriage, things like that. And so as you think about all that, the practical I have for you in this area, number 4, is to build a community of accountability and honesty. You really need that. Build a community of accountability and honesty. And I would encourage you, like, really to seek that genuinely and not just superficially. What I mean by that is, God, this was really funny. Happened to be a number of years ago. This brother came, wanted to meet up with me, and he said, "Hey, Pastor, I just want to let you know that, I'm going to start a relationship with this girl. We're interested in each other, and we've decided this is what we want to do, and we think this is what God wants us to do, and just want to let you know." And I was like, okay, thanks for letting me know. And that was basically the content of our conversation. And then later on, someone came up to me and said, like, "Hey, these people started this relationship. We're actually really concerned about them. We're not at all sure that they're ready for this. And in fact, things are already kind of going bad. And like, this person is telling everyone that you said it was okay to go ahead with the relationship." And I was like, "What? Like, I didn't say that. I said, like, okay, thanks for letting me know. I didn't say, like, I give you my stamp of approval." And I just realized that guy, when he met up with me, he just wanted me to, like, kind of sign off on what he already wanted to do. He wasn't looking for any guidance from me. He wasn't looking for, any sort of advice or anything like that. He just wanted to be able to tell other people that I somehow gave this approval to him. That's not real accountability. That's deception. That's manipulation. Like, that's really not cool. You need people in your life that will give you honest accountability. And so invite those people into your life. Say, "Hey, like, I want to pursue this relationship. I want you to be brutally honest with me. Tell me if you're concerned. Tell me what I can work on. Tell me what I can grow in. Like, tell me if you don't think it's the right time." You need to invite that kind of input and relationship into your life that will be for your blessing. And another part of this, as we're talking about community, I mentioned to you earlier about the importance of, like, practicing the gospel with others. If you're not able to practice the gospel with other people in your community, you will not be able to do it with your significant other or your future spouse. What do I mean by that? If you can't forgive your roommate for their carelessness, you won't be able to forgive your spouse for their carelessness. If you can't be patient with someone in your life group with the issue they're struggling with, you won't be able to be patient with your boyfriend or your girlfriend with what they're struggling with. Like, these are basic things. And if you can't learn to share that in community, to experience and practice that in community, it's just going to be all bad for you. The gospel of Jesus Christ is there not just to be some idea that we hear on Sunday, something we sing about in songs. It's there to be like a real thing in your life that you live out and experience with others. So build a community of accountability and honesty. Really be resolved that this community is critical, and it'll be for your blessing.
I just wanted to pause the video just for one thing. Not that many of us might take it this way, but some people hear the phrase like stamp of approval and think, "Oh, this church needs the pastoral stamp of approval on every single relationship before it starts," or anything like that. Hopefully you heard it in context. That is not what we're saying. The big thing is emphasis on the importance of community, right? And so don't need just say. Now, if you want to tell the pastors about stuff, we're more than willing to listen and give our advice and input and things like that. We may or may not know, so whatever, but we do care about you. If you want us to pray for you, we're more than willing to do that, but we do not need, this is not a pastor's stamp approval on every single relationship in our church. Just wanted, again, many of us might not take it that way, but just wanted to make sure that's clear before we continue on. So yeah, just going to emphasize that. And also, I know some of us may want to think about, well, how does community get involved if we want to actually start pursuing someone, or what if I like someone, all that stuff. Keep watching, have those questions, throw them in the Slido or whatever else, but we will keep going.
Now, some of you are probably wondering by this point, are we ever going to get to talking about actually getting in a relationship, actually finding someone, well, don't worry, we're there. Principle number 5 is find someone on the same path. You see, I think the reason that so many of us struggle to find that right person, to start that relationship, to identify that person that you want to be in a relationship with or you even want to marry, is because you're trying to find the person here in Principle 5 before you've actually grown in numbers 1 through 4. You're trying to skip over all the stuff that God needs to do in you, all the preparation that's going to help you, and just skip to finding the person before growing in these different things that are really going to help you. In 2 Corinthians 6, verse 14, it says, "Do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. For what partnership has righteousness with lawlessness, or what fellowship has light with darkness?" And, this is Paul specifically basically teaching that for Christians, we should only marry other Christians. But I think there's also a broader principle here, the principle that you should be yoked to, partnered in life with someone that's on the same path that you are. So what do we look for here? Well, first, look for chemistry. Like, there are probably people that you find attractive. There are probably people that you have a good time with and you enjoy being around. People that you just have a lot of fun with. People that, for whatever reason, you're just like, man, I really want to be around him. I really want to be around her. Great. Like, chemistry is awesome. But chemistry is actually, if that's all it is, that's a really shallow way to look for a significant other or to look for a future spouse. Really what I would say to look for is look for principles 1 through 4 in the other person. So see it like, is this a person who knows their destination? And is that destination aligned with your destination? Look for someone who you can tell they've already been working on themselves to become the right person before trying to find the right person. Like, are they growing in things like character and responsibility and commitment? Like, is that something that who they are? Is this a person who is really prioritizing their relationship with God first, and they're growing like a real like identity in Christ and security and maturity in Him? Is this a person that has great community, that you can see them practicing the gospel with others? You can see they have real accountability and they're honest with others. Like, look for those things that we've just been talking about. Just look for it in other people the same way you've been looking for it in you. And that person's going to be a great person. And something I would really encourage you with here is that I really think time is your friend. All of you watching this here, I'm going to assume you're probably between like 18 and 22 years old. Some of you, maybe you're grad students and joining us. Some of you, maybe you're serving in campus ministry, but you're a bit older. But everyone with us here tonight is pretty young, and time is on your side. One of the worst mistakes you can make is to try to rush into a relationship when you don't even know yourself and you don't even really know the other person that you're interested in. Time really helps with that. What do I mean by that? Like, something I've realized is that when you have two people who are interested in each other, they're only going to be showing each other their best side. You're going to be constantly wearing a mask with each other and only showing the other person what you think they want to see, because you want their acceptance. You want them to like you. You want them to approve of you. And so for the first little while that you're getting to know each other, like probably the first few months at least, you're probably not going to see who that person really is. It's going to take some time for them to let down their guard and for you to start seeing who they really are. Another tip around this is not just to give yourself some time to get to know the other person, but also see how they interact with other people. If they treat you really well and they treat other people like dirt, trust that they're going to treat you like dirt someday. Seriously. Like, if you realize this person is so harsh and critical and judgmental with someone else, or they're so selfish with other people, just know they're going to do that to you someday. And as kind as they are to you right now, as patient as they are, whatever, it's just because they want you to like them. And it's not because they're showing you their true self, who they really are. In fact, they might just want to use you and get something out of you. And they're just putting on an act to get that. I'm not saying that you should treat everyone as if they're trying to deceive you, but just realize this is human nature. When you want someone else to like you, when you like them, you're just going to show them the best side of yourself, and you're not going to be fully honest with who you are. So take some time and be willing to wait to get to know that person. Another reason for that is that you're still really getting to know yourself, you're getting to know God, you're getting to know others, you're developing a vision for life. Like that takes some time too. When you're in your college years, I think I've seen people and who have spent a huge amount of their time and energy in college and devoted to this relationship with someone without investing in these other areas of life. And then a lot of times that relationship falls apart and they're left wondering, wait, I don't have any community because all my community was in this other person. I don't know God because I haven't been focusing on him. I don't really know who I am apart from this person. I don't know what I'm looking for in life because I was just so focused on this person. Like, your college years are one of the best times to actually get to know yourself because you're still actually like really growing a ton as a person. Like, get to know your passions, get to know your convictions, build that vision of life that you're seeking after. And once you're getting to know yourself a bit more, then, and that other person's getting to know themselves too, then figure out if that person's the right person for you and if you should actually start a relationship with each other. One of the biggest reasons that I share this with you is that someone who's not on the same path with you will try to pull you onto their path. So like, let me just give you a very practical, tangible example of this. If your path that you're on is like, you have this vision of married life that you're saying, okay, I'm ultimately going for that. Like, who knows if this relationship will go there, but that's my goal. And you say, okay, like, this is a covenant relationship. It's a relationship of oneness, of unity in every area of life. And so like, that's what that's for. That's what I'm preparing for. That's what I'm going for. And then let's say there's someone else that you get in a relationship with. They're not on the same path with you. And so what happens? For them, maybe their path is they just want to gratify themselves sexually. And there are plenty of people that's their main motivation for getting in a relationship. Now for you, you're like, okay, that sexual oneness, that's intended for marriage. So I'm going to wait for that. That's for marriage. But then this person is like, well, no, that's not my path. That's not what I'm going for. I want that now. And so they're going to try to pull you off your path and onto theirs. They're going to try to convince you that it's okay to cross physical boundaries, to do things sexually with each other that you know are not right, you know are not pleasing to God, you know that's not the path God's called you to. But because you're in this relationship, that person's going to try to pull you onto that. And so I just want to encourage you with that, like, know that path. And if someone's not on the same path as you, don't compromise by jumping onto their path and giving up your own. That's why it's so important you know some of those things before you get into a relationship with someone, and why it's so important that you actually focus on finding someone who shares the path that you're pursuing. And so a practical thing there, a practice number 5, is to find friends on the path you're on. Find friends. Find friends that are the same gender as you, that are just friends. Find friends of the opposite gender that you're like, they seem like they're on the same path as me. I want to get to know them. I want to be friends with them. I want to see how they grow. I want to see what's important to them. I want to see how they treat other people. I want to see what kind of community they have. Build friendships with people on the same path and see if maybe God will lead that to becoming something more. And that leads us to the last thing that we're going to close out with here.
I had a kind of a direct message. I don't know what everyone's background is, how we think of the term dating. I will say there's a distinction between like going out to get to know someone versus like, I think how Pastor Pete often uses it is in the context of like a relationship, like you're actually in the middle of it. So if you're confused about that, please feel free to keep, jotting down questions or whatever else. I just want to acknowledge that some of us might have different understandings of those words. That's completely okay, but just ask for clarification. We would love to help clarify. So,
principle number 6 is start well to end well. Start well to end well. Jesus taught this, Luke chapter 14, verse 28. For which of you, desiring to build a tower, does not first sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? You see, Jesus taught this principle that of only starting something when you know you have what it takes to finish it. That's so huge. Only start something when you know you have what it takes to finish it. There's a principle of counting the cost. You want to get to a place in life where you know that if you start something, you're ready for whatever it is that comes afterward. Now, you're never going to be like 100% ready. None of us are for dating or relationships, marriage, whatever it is. But you want to know that you're like really moving in the right direction. You want to be able to start that with confidence. And then, I think something about this that I realize is that relationships and marriage are way too important to stumble into or just wander toward. What do I mean by that? Like, someone was sharing this with me the other day. I thought it was very insightful. I know that like online dating and dating apps and stuff are pretty popular right now. And there might be some of you that you're like, I want to take dating seriously. I want to take marriage and relationships seriously. But, everyone is kind of messing around with online dating. Everyone's on Tinder. Everyone's on whatever. And so maybe you just think, okay, like, I'm just going to try it out. What's the harm? I'm just going to get on. I'm just going to make a profile, see what's going on, see what happens. And so you're like, okay, you get on, you make your profile, you start swiping left, swiping right. And then, surprise, you get a notification. You actually matched with someone. Now, suddenly, you go from a person that was just kind of messing around with that app, just kind of checking out to see what you're missing with online dating. And by the way, I'm not saying online dating is bad, but you're just kind of messing around with it. And then suddenly, you're actually on the cusp of being in a relationship. You matched with this person. There's this expectation, okay, hey, maybe now we're going to get together. Maybe now something's going to happen. Maybe we're going to do something. And suddenly you go from this person that, was trying to take this idea of relationships and marriage very seriously. And then suddenly you're actually just stumbling into a relationship that you're not at all prepared for, and you have no idea what path that other person is on. Right? That's how those things can happen. And I want to encourage you, like, this is something that's so valuable. It will set much of the course of the rest of your life. It's the biggest decision you have to make in your life apart from following Jesus Christ. You don't want to just wander into that casually. And so what should this look like? You're getting to know each other in community. You're looking around, building friendships with people who are on the same path as you. Awesome. When you're at a point where you're ready to start a relationship, you've prayed about it, you've sought God, hopefully you've consulted people in your community, you've taken a little time to actually get to know that person and really pray through the decision, and okay, now you actually want to start a relationship. What should happen then? Well, I'm going to say something some of you might not like, but I think it's important to say. I believe that the man should take initiative. And women, I would really encourage you to wait on the guy to make his intentions known. Why do I say that? Well, women, one of the things that, if you don't know it already, you probably will know very soon, is that one of the biggest struggles that men have is passivity. And if you want to be with a guy who's passive, and if you want to encourage his passivity, then what you will do is you will initiate the relationship. You won't make him get into that uncomfortable place of having to express his intentions. You'll somehow, give him a way out where he doesn't have to take initiative and where you do that for him. And that's going to empower him to be passive, and it's not going to go well for your relationship. If you want a guy who's not passive, but who actually takes some initiative and is able to get over that hump and be able to really invest in the relationship actively, well, wait. Let him get to a place where he is taking the initiative, where he gets over that hump of waiting for you, of hoping that you say something, of hoping that you DTR, hoping you whatever. Don't do it for him. Make him do it. Just wait and see if this guy cares about you enough. See if this guy is interested in you enough that he's willing to get out of that rut of passivity and actually say something and start a relationship with you. And brothers, when you do that, be direct, be honest, and be ready to follow through. I've seen too many guys that go through this, interested in a girl, hanging out with her. Maybe he kind of slides into the DMs, right? And just starts chatting, whatever, messing around. And he doesn't really know what he wants. He doesn't really know if he wants a relationship. He doesn't know if he's ready to follow through on that. But at the same time, he wants to let that girl know that he's interested. And basically he wants to let her know so that some other guy doesn't swoop along and take her. And so what does he do? He usually has a DTR with her and says, hey, I'm interested. What do you feel? I don't know why he says that, but he probably tries to be smooth, but he's probably really awkward anyway. And so this DTR happens, but then at the same time, the guy doesn't actually want to start a relationship. And so this is effectively the same thing as a dog peeing on a fire hydrant to claim its territory. And this, I've seen guys sometimes, they'll like, want this girl to be their territory, but at the same time, they're not ready to actually start a relationship. And it's ridiculous. Guys, be ready. Like if you're ready to start a relationship, say so and express your intentions. If you're not, then keep quiet, because all you're doing is trying to put that girl in a bind and keep her from moving on to someone else when you're not ready to do anything in the first place. So I want to encourage you guys with that. Like if you're gonna, you need to start well if you're gonna end well. You need to be ready to express your intentions, or else don't say anything to begin with and just be content being friends. And so, just a last practice here to sum it up is just start with intention or wait with conviction. Brothers, if you're going to start something, start with intention. Know what you're getting yourself into. Be ready to follow through. Ladies, wait with conviction. Say, I'm worth someone taking initiative with. I'm worth waiting for someone who's going to take me seriously. I'm worth someone who's going to value me and tell me that they're ready to be in a relationship with me. Like, I'm worth that. I'm going to have that conviction. So I'm going to wait and trust that God's going to bring that guy along. Don't give him an out in the meantime. With all of that, I want to say that not every relationship is going to be perfect. No relationship's going to be perfect. Not every relationship's going to end in marriage. That's okay. But we should know what our target is, know what your path is, know what the destination is that you're going toward. And then really try to build that relationship with one another that's going to honor Christ, that's going to practice the gospel, help you grow closer to Jesus, build each other up, and hopefully discern and discover together if this is something God's actually leading toward marriage. I hope this is helpful to you. I have a lot more to say, but it's going to take too long to say it. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you guys and to Pastor Josh. I think he's going to lead you in some time of kind of Q&A and response and stuff tonight. So thank you guys for listening today. I hope this is helpful to you. If it's not, then just take what's good and throw out what's bad. But I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys grow, seeing you start great Christ-centered relationships, and hopefully have amazing marriages and families in the future. God bless you guys.
Well, I'm guessing we ended on a fun note. I'm guessing, if anything, there's stuff to clarify toward the end. What we're going to do is this. I'm going to ask us to take 4 minutes. If y'all need to go to the bathroom, I mean, some of you might be in the bathroom. Some of you might be watching on the toilet. Like, that's completely okay. I'm not going to say which meetings. I've done meetings in the bathroom. I'll just stop there. I'm going to ask us to take 4 minutes. So it'll be 8:23 when I stop talking. I'll give us till 8:27 according to my clock. If we could just kind of take some time to digest, like, wait, what? That was a whole lot of talking. What's sticking out? What questions do I still have? The way that me and Pastor Pete, the way we've thought about this is there are it's hard because everyone might be coming from like all of these different experiences and backgrounds. So we wanted to start with some principles that Pastor Pete kind of laid out, but also have this time to answer specific questions. Now, some questions might be just relevant to you. That's why we have a Q&A upvote system. So if it's just relevant to you, like I like so-and-so, and they really don't want to be in a relationship, what do I do? Like, that's just you, then we're not gonna, you want to talk to me later, and I'll pray for you if you want to cry, whatever. I don't know, worry. I'm really not trying to make fun. But if it's just relevant to you, we're probably not going to answer it. But if it's something that a lot of us are thinking about, no matter how detailed, how specific, how practical, we want to try to do that here. There's two big reasons, three big reasons why Erica's here. One is that I just like her. It's just nice having her around. Two, for us to share personally, if you do have questions on a more personal level, either from our own lives. I know I've made a lot of mistakes in the past without being dishonoring to the other people. I'll share some of those if it's helpful, or just share personally about even our relationship. We want to be helpful and personal if it helps having a more personal example. As well as she is a girl. Just saying, she is a girl. Pastor Pete and I are both men. And so, for her, if it's helpful to hear a different perspective, she's not representative of all females either. but she at least can be another voice and another perspective for tonight. And so all that said, let's take 4 minutes. I'm actually talking longer than I thought. 8:28 by my clock. Submit questions on the Q&A, vote questions for a bit. If you just want to hang out and say hi in the chat or whatever, let's do that. But let's take 4 minutes, digest, ask questions, all those things. Anything really is on the table. If it is better answered in another session, I might hold off, not to avoid questions, but it just might be too long, and I don't want to preach a sermon today. But yeah, let's do that. 4 minutes, process, ask questions, vote, all those things. We'll do that for a bit here. Point 5 was find someone who's on the same path. I don't know exactly what wording he used, but find someone who's on the same path as you. That was point number 5. Yeah, short questions like that, like, hey, what did he say, or what was the reference? What was the book? There was one, what, Meaning of Marriage? Meaning of Marriage is one. Victory Over Darkness. I actually got it to look in my bookcase. I thought I had it. I couldn't find it if I do have it. That's a book I actually highly recommend. That's a great one. It's a little bit older, but it's a great book as well. Both great books. Just some follow-up comments from myself as I'm kind of going through this. We specifically labeled the first point knowing your destination. It's not that it has to be the exact same. I mean, 5 does talk about it a little bit, but it doesn't have to be the exact same. But the stronger that you know where you want to go, the easier it will be to find someone who will somewhat match. So for instance, Erica has no ambitions of being a pastor's wife. She's great. She is very wanting to be my wife, but not like if pastor's wife was a job, like she would have no ambitions for that, and that's okay. We both know our personal callings. We both, I don't know if I want to talk about it, but we both have feelings of what God is calling us to do, and the stronger that we know that, the more we know that actually we can go together with it, even though it's not exactly tied together. And so that's one. I will say that, no, that's it. If it comes up in a story, I'll share it. But I've had many, not many. There have been potentials that have fallen through because things don't match. Stamp of approval, I said that already. I hope we caught the last point that Pastor Pete says. It doesn't mean you have to go, to marriage in every given thing. Actually, that's how we got started. I did not know that we would end up where we are when I first asked Erica. I knew I respected her a lot. I knew I loved the thoughts and the ideas and everything that she, because we were on staff together for a church. I liked a lot of that. I thought she was pretty, but I didn't know because we never were friends beforehand. And so when I first asked her, we were like, hey, can we try just being friends for 3 months? And then if at that point, if we're feeling like this isn't going to work, then we'll pull out. Like we gave kind of a marker to say, hey, we'll try this. We'll try to be friends. If I tried anything shady, like, like trying to text her and like, hey, what are you doing? What's going on? Nothing. I don't think she would have responded that well. She's like, why is P. Josh being so creepy and trying to do that? I feel like you appreciated the directness.
Yes.
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 100%.
Let's try being friends. Let's try this for a few months. And then also having an off ramp. If it doesn't work, then at this point we'll just say, hey, we're okay. We'll keep working. We're fine, but we're not going to pursue it. So just notes I had in my columns, not specifically addressing any questions, but shall we get to it? You guys good? Everyone's snacked up, bathrooms, not up, down? I don't know. I'm not going to go into that. By far, it looks like the most popular question submitted by Anonymous. How do you decide you know someone well enough before deciding to get into a relationship? How do you decide you know someone well enough before deciding to get into a relationship? I don't know where to start with this one. Yeah. If you want to start with anything, I can. I'll give Erica some time to think. There is there's a lot of routes I could go. Like one, this is where the idea of community can help. And so, if you don't know, like I don't know Erica that well. And so, that's why Shinshin is my favorite third wheel, because she actually helped us actually spend time together, because we're on staff together. So I would ask her friends, I asked her mentors. I asked about her, and personality wise, I don't think they knew us well. They either knew me or her, but not both. And they knew well, they didn't know both of us well enough to say anything. But if that's a helpful thing, if community is a helpful thing, are there any red flags with so and so? Are there any concerning things with them? That's an issue, both for us and for even another couple that we know. They started with not really knowing each other that well, and they started the relationship by saying, "Hey, we don't know each other that well. Can we start by getting to know one another?" And then also giving that marker of, "Hey, if we decide that, I'm not sure if it's a timeline or like, at this point we're going to decide, but at least having some clear marker of saying, hey, we've gotten to know each other. We feel good moving forward, or we don't. Right? That's okay. But having that intention helps a lot. And so if you know enough, if you're talking with people and they said, actually, yeah, maybe, who knows? I think that could be a helpful thing as well. But then that intention was starting it. To let you know, it's not necessarily, I don't know everyone's personal stories and lives here. I don't know every detail. So, talk with someone who knows better. But it's not to say that you shouldn't, but how you start that relationship. I think that speaks to that. Do you start with just saying, oh, I actually just want to get to know each other, and starting with that, on top of all the other principles? I feel like I'm rambling at this point. I don't know if that's giving you time to think.
Well, I think to add to that, I would say, I think there are like things that are normal for you to do as friends, and there's going to come a point probably in your friendship with someone of the opposite gender that you are also interested in, that you're going to start thinking, I wonder if I'm crossing what I would normally do for any friend. Like for me, it's like maybe I would do this for any of my guy friends, but then like maybe I would, I don't know, like maybe I wouldn't necessarily go eat a meal, but maybe I'm okay with coffee dates. I'm like coming up with just random stuff. Like I'll go grab a coffee with any guy who's asking just to like catch up. But a sit down meal for me is something that I wouldn't do. Or I would do a 1 hour catch up session, but 3 hours later, if I'm still with the guy, I realize, this is not something I would do with any brother. So we all kind of know those boundaries. And I would say, like, when you begin to think you're crossing the boundaries of what you would do with any person of the opposite gender, then you need to start being careful, especially if you know that you like the other person. And so I think this is where I've seen people do things like they start texting an accountability every time they hang out with this person that they like. They only try to hang out in group context because they want to be above reproach. Things like that. It's like, I know that like I like this person, so I really do need that accountability to make sure I'm not just wanting to get close to them. And then I think the other thing that you want to be very careful of is actually asking the other person to share a lot of personal things with you. Because maybe you just want to get to know them, but you don't have the right to know their deeper, more personal secrets and things yet, because you didn't commit to anything. You're just a friend as far as the other person is concerned. So I think that's something else to keep in mind. And I think like, I don't know if this is also part of like the thought process behind the person who like wrote the question, but like, I think we've touched on this in other parts of the seminar too, but like you're not like you don't need to know whether or not you will marry the person to start dating them or to ask them out. So I feel like sometimes we think like the bar needs to be like this high. I need to know everything about the other person, how deeply they love Jesus, how much they sin on a given day, and how they respond to every single issue on this planet. But like you don't actually need to know those things. I don't think we knew those things. And so I think it's important to maybe just know, like, if you don't even know the other person, like the two of us, we just needed to figure out if we could even be friends. Then maybe you just need to know enough to be able to say, okay, I'd like, the next question we have to answer is, can we be friends? So then I'm just going to ask that. Or maybe the next question is, can we date? And then further down the line is, can we get married? So you don't need to know everything about the other person. Part of dating is to figure out the question of, can we get married? And it's okay to not know the answer to that yet. It's okay to not know like every single thing about the other person, because actually you can't. If you know those things, you should have been dating already, probably. But those are some things that I would say to that question too.
I would say until, I mean, depending on your philosophy, either at the moment of engagement or marriage, like that's the point when you're committed for the rest of your life, right? And depending on how you perceive what you think engagement actually is. Everything before that is for the sake of clarity, right? And so as you're thinking about, if, I don't know, maybe it's this way, you're starting here and you want to end here, unity, oneness, you want to be, together. And so it's okay to be, no matter how big this, I don't know if it translates on the screen, no matter how big this distance is, that's okay. Also make sure that your intimacy, both emotional and physical and even spiritual, right? Make sure that that intimacy is not, or it represents where you are in that path of getting closer to one. Right? So if you're just getting to be friends, that's great, right? Friends, I don't hold hands with my friends. I don't, well, some of my guy friends, I'll give like head massages and like, I'll do some weird stuff. That's a whole different thing. I definitely don't do that with girls. That is definitely not a thing. And so make sure that that intimacy, both emotional, physical, and spiritual, is correlated with, and it's tracking along with how clear you all are on how close you are, or if you're ready for marriage and things like that. Yeah, I think that's okay. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I realized, never mind. This question got upvoted, but originally we were basically beginning to answer this question.
Okay, we'll answer the second question because it kind of goes along with, and then we'll jump back to the first one. How close is too close when trying to deepen friendships? Learn more about multiple people of the opposite gender. I mean, I think you said something along the lines of, but if they're, before you start dating or before you're in a relationship or whatever, if they're treating you differently than anyone else of the opposite gender, I think that's just, I don't know if it's like a proximity thing, but I think that's just something to be careful of, right? I mean, they should treat you differently. Here's the thing. They should treat you differently if they're interested in you. They should smile more when you're around. They should, be happy that you're in the room or something like that. But, things like, messaging late, 2, 3 in the morning, and they don't do that with anybody else. If they do that with everybody, that's more an issue that they should be sleeping more. So I don't know what to say to that. But it's okay. It's not like a clear marker, but that's like just a red flag, just something to be cautious of, is if that differs. If I treated Erica differently than any other girl in our church, I think especially as a pastor, I was very aware of that. But in general, that's a good rule of thumb before you make your intentions known. I don't know if you bring up any other.
I think with that, like, I had a thought.
Okay, while she's talking, I'll also share too. Like, I'm pretty open with a lot of my mistakes. So, but I know some people aren't. So when I share my life story, I'm sharing all the nasty stuff. I'm sharing all the sin. I'm sharing things that honestly, like, my parents know a lot, all of this stuff. And they're like, yeah, you probably shouldn't tell anybody that. I'm like, well, okay, we differ. But was it? Yeah, so I'm very vulnerable with everybody. That's not the case for everybody. So, for you, if you're this vulnerable, with this person, but then you go deeper with the other person, you know, that's just a cautious thing. I don't know if you were
thinking. Yes.
Yeah.
I think like some things to keep in mind also, like two other thoughts I have. One is I think like accountability is really, really important, even when you're answering this question of how close is too close. And I say that because not that like other people should be the Holy Spirit's voice to you and tell you when you're sinning, but I think letting other people look into your life and tell you like, hey, I think you're too close or whatever. I think that's important. And sometimes it's also like, it can be so situationally specific, you know, and like much as we can give like general principles of when maybe you've generally crossed the line, to be honest, like they're probably not going to be very helpful for a lot of like, oh, but what if I like this girl and then there's this one very specific situation, like you don't understand all the parameters as to why this is particularly complicated or whatever. So like having people in your life that can hold you accountable and ask the tough questions, I think above all else, that is how you can safeguard against getting too close to other people where you cross certain boundaries, because then people will see it and they can help you like become more aware of those boundaries. I think something else just to be careful of is like when you start asking personal questions in a one-on-one setting. And like, I think speaking personally from experience, this is even more so something to keep in mind if you're asking personal questions over text. And that's just maybe something that I'm hypersensitive of, and I'm willing for that to be the case. But I say this because I know for me, like the thought of someone being able to text me any time of the day and ask me, hey, how are you doing? Especially if this is a guy I like, that kind of makes me feel closer to him than we actually are. Because any time of the day, someone can text me and I can respond with like personal information, or I can ask him for personal information about what's going on in his life. And we may never actually hang out in person or see each other all that often. Maybe we don't even really do more than say hi to each other in like life group or at church when we bump into each other. But because over text or over, I don't know, Facebook Messenger or whatever else people use these days, Instagram, whatever, like you can like have all these deep conversations with the other person. That's where, again, I would say, be careful. And asking another person to share a lot of like their personal stuff, I guess, like, again, when you're doing it over text, it's an artificial environment that you create just between you and that other person. So again, it creates that false sense of like intimacy. And then also like in one-on-one settings, like it's not a group setting, it's just you and that person, and you start asking personal questions. I think these are the places where I would just say be careful. So again, I'm not saying you can't do those things. And again, as I've said, the biggest safeguard you have really is to have accountability in your life, to just keep asking you those questions and help you navigate through like the day-to-day scenarios that you might encounter. But, that's what I would say.
Yeah. That brings to mind a story. We were studying. This is when I was an undergrad. I was studying in a room. I fell asleep, like I do a lot. And then I woke up and I saw this guy and this girl talking really intimately on the couch. And they're like, "Oh, he's awake." And that's fun. I don't know why I share that. That's just dumb. I'm gonna ask this next question, and then I'm gonna go make some more tea because I don't think I should answer this question, or I don't think it'd be as helpful if I answer this question. If the guy is supposed to pursue, what should the girl do while waiting?
Great question. So in all honesty, I think this is something that I've had to struggle with and think through on my own too a lot over the years. I think one of the first things I would say is, as a sister, I tried to do two different things. One was I tried to make sure an older sister knew if I was finding myself in a place where I like someone, and I cannot like, I'm the type of person that denies when I like somebody to like I don't know, to my death, basically. But if I get to a point where I'm like, crap, I can't deny it, I do like this person, I make sure that an older sister always knows, because just for accountability. And I learned actually a long time ago to not tell my peers, because I found myself once, more than once maybe, in awkward situations where two of my friends would tell me they like the same guy. And I'm like, good thing I don't also like the guy. But what if they told each other? It's just awkward, right? So I end up telling older sisters who that's not going to happen. So that's the first thing. I seek for accountability. The second thing that I think like God had to really teach me to work through was how to surrender waiting for the guy. And what I mean by that is, I think a lot of the times I would do things like try not to think about the guy. Like I see him walk into the room, I immediately walk out of the room. I like things like that to try and like basically like get the feelings out of me, I guess, almost like I want to stop liking the guy. And then I would also do this very damaging thing where I would nitpick at myself. Like, here's all the reasons why this guy will never like me anyway. Like all the things that are wrong with me or whatever else. And a lot of it, bottom line, was to try and stop liking the guy. And I think over the years, one of the hard lessons that God had to teach me was that I couldn't stop liking someone, even if I wanted to. And I think God had to teach me that that was okay, and that all I can do is to trust my heart and my feelings into his hands. And he's the one who like I can pour all these emotions out to, and it's safe with him. And if he wants something to happen with the guy that I'm interested in, he will make it happen. And if he wants me to start liking someone else who will ultimately be the right person for me, he will make that happen. And it's not in my hands to be able to change how I feel. And I think that's something that like it took me a long time to actually understand, because I think I used to think of surrender, like older sisters talking about like guard your heart, surrender, all these things. I just interpreted it as stuff you're feeling somewhere deep, deep, deep inside of you and try to get rid of it and try not to pay attention to it. And I think instead what God had to really teach me was you don't have the power, Erica, to stop those feelings even if you wanted to. And you also don't have the power to make things happen or not happen, because like ultimately God is the one who is sovereign over my life, right? And I think God was just like, you have to trust me for these like these moments where things are hard, and just have to like trust that I will move your heart to the right person in the right time. And that's not something you can control. But yeah, I mean, sisters, if you guys have more questions about this, I would also be happy to talk with you one-on-one at other times as well. So yeah.
I realize we've been kind of doing this back to back. Anyone have any follow-up questions on any of the questions we've asked so far? If it's something you don't feel comfortable just unmuting yourself, then you can direct message me in the Zoom chat. It will not, this, I will make sure it does not go on, you know, whatever we YouTube, whatever method we posted online. But if anyone has any follow-up questions, please feel free. Or to even just DM me while we're doing it. I will not follow up with you personally for any question that you ask here, unless you want me to. I'll just say that. But, yeah. I don't think you talked about, is there a way to express interest while not pursuing a relationship? That's my follow-up question to Erica.
Sure.
Which doesn't mean anything to us because we're, you know, engaged.
Sure. So I will say, I don't know if I'm the best sister to ask this question to, just because I know, well, I had a reputation when I was an undergrad and even like years beyond undergrad where I was not approachable, I guess is the word. I definitely would not.
There was a different word that I heard.
Sure, whatever. Is there a way? I think yes. I'm not being honest and say I don't even know what you would do. I'm sorry. I think I'm totally the wrong sister to be asking these questions to. Also I will say this, depending on your own like philosophy and things, there are Christians out there who will say you should not do that. You should not even hint at being interested. So I don't know. I actually personally, I don't know where I stand with doing things that like hint to the brother that you're very much so interested and you're trying to get him to do something. Again, if you have more questions in that arena, I would also be happy to like talk with you about it. But I will put that huge disclaimer out there that I'm also not the best person to ask this question to.
I would say, go to their bed, uncover their feet, and
no, please don't do that.
I'm kidding. Don't do that. 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 That's one time you should not take the Bible as an example. Please don't do that.
Lord. No,
How do you pursue someone if you think that they don't like you? I'm gonna speak first because, yeah, she had a reputation of, should I say the other word?
Say whatever you want.
She had a reputation of being somewhat of a man hater. Before I approached her, that was kind of her what she was known for. I thought that she didn't like me, and apparently I was almost kind of right.
Yeah.
I didn't know this until after we started dating, but she would go to her mentor, who used to be part of her church, and complain about me and how it was working with me on staff. I didn't find this out till after, but she. So actually, I asked her mentor, "Can I ask Erica out on get to know each other and stuff like that?" At first, the mentor actually told me yes, and then she comes up to me like less than a week later at a wedding and says, "Did you do it yet? Good, don't," because she had just ranted to her about me. And so I waited another month on top of that, and I'm like, is this ever gonna happen? So I don't know. I mean, honestly, like if you're, so I would say if you're talking with community, if you're getting counsel, if you're having accountability and all that stuff, and they say go, for it, but the only thing holding back is their lack of interest in you. Like here's something that I would tell to people advising other people about whether they should get into a relationship. Just because they know that the other person doesn't like them back, I don't know if that's actually a reason not to tell them to go for it. I think that's part of life. It is a risk. It is risky. I risked a lot because we were still going to work together, and it could have been a very awkward 6 months of staff meetings if she said no. It is a risk. And I think what would come out of that is, maybe lessons learned, or, if you're devastated, if someone says no, maybe that's something that God is trying to do in your life, is to build your security and identity. And you should do that for that season. This is where, your personal relationships are going to help a lot. Accountability, mentors, disciplers, people investing in that. They know your life a lot better than I do. But I would say, just on the surface, it's a risk. Like anything that involves risk, there's a risk that they may say no. And so, yeah, I mean, if you're talking more of the process, like if you don't think they like you because they don't know you, like try to maximize the context as much as you can. Again, we know some couples who they start cold, like hey, we don't really know each other at all, but I've heard some good things through the grapevine. Would you like to grab coffee a few times just to get to know each other and see what happens? That's completely okay, right? If you don't think if you think they don't like you, like they're anti you, I don't know. It's a risk. I thought she was worth the no. I will just say that. Let's see. Dropping hints. Yeah, I don't know. Well, I don't know if it's all the. Yeah. I don't know if you want to.
Well, I think so. A couple of things I would say about dropping hints that I have concrete thoughts on is like, so one I would say is you should not ask someone out. Okay, I'm saying this as a girl, so I will say that. I'm not a brother, but I feel like you should not ask someone out on the conviction that you're convinced the other person will say yes. And I think that that's not, I guess in my mind, I feel like you can't know the answer yet to some degree, and you should not be asking because you're convinced the other person will say yes only, right? Like it should be, like for instance, P. Josh prayed about it for quite a while, and like what he felt was God was saying, hey, give Erica the chance to pray about the two of you having a calling together. And so I think it shouldn't be out of like a you ask someone out only because you know for sure they will say yes. And so I think sometimes when we drop hints, it's out of a desire to like, maybe it's like, I don't want to be rejected. So I want to kind of like test it out first. I know that's not always why we want to drop hints, but like sometimes that's part of the reason why. And I feel like when you are wanting to drop hints for the sake of not asking and then receiving a no and losing your sense of pride, that's actually a bad motivation. And I think one of the things about Christian dating that hopefully can set us apart from the rest of the world is the ability to be secure in our identity in Christ, such that you can put yourself out there the way P. Josh did, really not knowing what the other person will necessarily say, but knowing that even if they say no, that doesn't reflect on your worth. And like, because you know that, you're able to be very clear in terms of like your intentions, and you don't leave the other person guessing. And one of the things I really actually appreciated about P. Josh was that I never had to guess where he was. And because he was always so clear, that gave me the room and space to figure out where I stood. Like if I was always wondering, okay, but is he even for real? Then I think I would have not even had the bandwidth to figure out whether or not I liked him, you know? And I think a lot of what gave me the freedom to take a step back and really just listen from God was him being very clear and upfront about where he stood, even knowing that I might end up saying no in the end anyway. And so there's other ways you can like, other reasons, I guess, to drop hints. Like sometimes it's like, dude, this guy's never gonna notice me and I'm gonna stand here and die. Like I've had friends, girls who have said that to me and like really wanted to drop hints just to get the guy to like notice they exist. I see a lot of sisters cracking up, but anyway. But like, I think if you're dropping hints purely for the sake of like, I don't want to lose face in the end and ask someone out, and like, I kind of want to make sure they're interested in me before I say anything, then I think that's not necessarily coming from a good place. I don't know if you have anything else you want to add to that.
No, yeah, I think that's good. If anyone has follow-up questions, again, please feel free. Unmute yourself anytime if you want to, and just jump in with a question to clarify. Or again, DMs are fine, or whatever else. If you feel more comfortable routing it through Benny, do that. Benny will be a filter if you're comfortable with him more than you are with DMing us. But
I promise to keep it anonymous.
yes.
Okay, I will unmute myself. So I asked the question in the slide.
You're coming in. If you could restart your question again, because you're muted, unmuting.
Oops, sorry. So basically the question was, how do we pursue the person we're interested in while knowing and respecting the fact that we may not be the one who's meant for them?
How do you define meant for?
Like, is it, because people, I feel very much so that people enter our lives for a very distinct reason, and Christ brings them into our lives for a reason. And that if we are in someone's life, whether it's a friendship or a relationship, we can learn and grow from that. But what if we are acting on our own desires rather than acting through like a Christ-centered mindset? Like kind of how, I'm so bad at explaining myself.
Take a stab at rephrasing.
Wait, say that again, sorry.
Can I try rephrasing your question and see if you
Yes.
rephrasing. So how do you think about dating, relationships, all this kind of general field, with the idea that you might not end up together? Is that no? Okay, the look on your face says no.
I don't know. I'm sorry. I should probably think on how to rephrase this question better and then come back. But I will be back. I'm gonna try to think this through.
Please feel free. Yeah.
Should we move on to the
Yeah,
next item?
I think so. What do you do if you like someone but you're not ready for a relationship, but they might like you? I've made a lot of mistakes in this area. I've made a lot of mistakes in general. It's Lord have mercy. So I've made a lot of mistakes in this area, and I've is everyone familiar with the term pulled the trigger? Yeah, like I've shot my shot with sisters, knowing that I wasn't in a place to start a relationship. I've actually pulled the trigger or told someone that I liked them, and also immediately followed up with, but I'm not ready to be in a relationship, like to her face in the same sentence. It was a run-on sentence. That was a mistake. And I did so. I know exactly why I did so. Is because I was getting jealous of them with another brother. It's hard, right? It is really hard. And I knew I had clarity around that I wasn't ready to. And I did so anyway. Does God redeem all things in the end? Yes. You know, there was a lot of pain through that process, and you know, I ended up on the other side. You know, the girl and I, we ended up being friendly. I don't know if friends is the right word, but friendly. We're on okay terms. I did end up with her, so that covers over a lot of pain and hurt and history. Find support so that you do what you know what you should do. Now, again, if there could be a question of, oh, I don't know if I should do this or not, or you know, I don't know if I'm ready or not. I'm not interpreting this question to have that discussion. I'm interpreting this question to say I know I should not be in a relationship, because I think if you try, then it goes from insecurity about your future, and I think this is where your faith is tested. God, I want to take my future into my own hands. I want to have control, some semblance of control. I want to force this person to wait for me as much as I'm able to until I'm ready. And one, I mean, in terms of relationship with God, is that demonstrating faith? I'm talking a lot stronger than I feel like I should, because I feel like I'm speaking to my past self. So don't take this like personally or like, oh, Pastor Josh is really like aggressive. No, don't. It's because I've made a lot of mistakes. It's because there's a lot of my history. I think I would tell my past self, have more faith in God that things are going to work out. If I had known what was waiting for me, it would have been a lot easier, but that's a whole other thing. Have faith that God is in control. I mean, is your security really built on whether or not you end up with this person? You know, God forbid if something happens to either one of us and we don't end up with one another, we'll be sad, sure, but we have God, and I think we'll be okay with that. And so try to find support. Here's one thing that I really struggled with at that time is I didn't have a lot of good guy friends. Just through the nature of a church plan and all this, I didn't have a lot of guy friends. And so I didn't have a lot of brothers to really speak well into my life and say, hey, do you feel like you're in a place to, you know, no one to really bounce counsel off of. / I was very prideful. I wanted to do what I wanted to do. So this is all the scenarios that were coming up for me. I'm not saying this is you in particular, but this is a lot of the scenarios that are coming up for me. Lack of trust in God, selfishness, just wanting to do what I wanted to do, and a lot of pride. And so I feel like I'm rambling. I don't know what I was trying to say. Hopefully some of that was helpful. I don't know if you want to.
That was good.
Okay. Any follow up? Or if Jessica, you remember what you're gonna, or you rephrased.
It's like, I kind of know the answer already, but I want to just like say it out loud so that other people can hear what I like, my thought processes behind it, but like I'm not leading the whole section. So
Yeah, at least what you were hoping to ask. But yeah, whatever thoughts you want to share, please.
So basically, let's say that if I were to pursue someone, there is no guarantee that the person that I'm pursuing is the person that I'm going to end up marrying, or if there is like a chance that like I end up with them, right? So I think what I was trying to get at is, should I be indifferent if things do end up working out, or if things don't end up working out? Because again, I would want to respect the person who I wouldn't know that the person I was interested in does end up getting like together with, right? So how do I pursue the person that I'm interested in while also respecting whoever it may be that is the one for them? It's a really long-winded question, but I hope that makes sense.
What you're saying. So kind of like, let's say me and P. Josh, how should I have handled the scenario where you asked me, can we be friends, when I didn't even know the answer to that yet? And maybe I am supposed to marry him, but maybe not. But I want to be respectful of the future person he would end up with in that scenario, right? Okay. So I think something that at least like me and P. Josh have talked about wanting to honor is like, so I think we take the Song of Solomon verse that PP quoted, like, you should not awaken love before it is ready, a lot as our guiding principle. So it's like you should not awaken a level of commitment in the other person that you are not ready for. And so when you step into a relationship, you're never going to know the outcome. You are never going to know for sure whether that will be the person you marry. You will never know for sure whether that person maybe is not, and you just kind of break up and you find other people ultimately. And I think as you journey in the relationship, you just need to, I would say, match your level of commitment with your level of intimacy. So for instance, like when we were just exploring friendship, I remember actually asking the same older sister I used to rant to about him, like, are there things I should not tell P. Josh because we're just exploring things right now? And then she told me, you should not tell him anything that you would not, first of all, want him to know forever, like, because he's not going to erase his memory just because you guys stop being friends, right? Or like stop, you don't pursue a dating relationship. You have to be okay with him knowing those things about you forever. And then the other thing she said was, you shouldn't tell him anything probably that you would tell a good friend. Because right now you guys are just building a friendship. So just think of it as you won't tell him anything you wouldn't tell a good friend. And I think like the same is true even after we decided, yes, we're dating, but then we were trying to explore, would we want to get married? Like yes, the commitment became deeper. So like there were more things I was willing to tell him at that point. But like at the same time, you want that to match the level of commitment. Your intimacy should match the level of commitment that you have. So that's what I would say. I don't know if you have anything else.
Well, I mean, what I shared before that little, if you think of like a sideways pyramid, and then the closer you are to marriage, the more you allow for intimacy. Breakups are going to be hard, regardless. Right? I mean, yeah, if you met once for coffee and you're like, yeah, I really don't like this person. He likes wrestling too much. I don't know, like, what's the fascination with pro wrestling? This is weird. I'm out. Right? Then it won't hurt that much. But breakups hurt. And so, again, you're trying to get that clarity. And so having that intimacy, both emotionally and physically. Emotionally, I share a lot with everybody, just everybody. But physically, right? Like we didn't hold hands until 8 months, right? So it was like 3 months of just seeing if we could be friends.
That was also more my issue.
There was another thing. Yes, it's not for everybody. But for my birthday, she said, "Okay, fine, we can hold hands," and then it was amazing. But physically, even I'm not going to go into every all our stuff, but physically, even we're the closer we get to marriage, and now that we're engaged, there's another level that we set. We're willing to do that. So physically, emotionally, and again, it's part of it. The closer you get to someone, if you break that relationship, even if you just think of friends. I moved around how many times, every time I would lose contact with a friend, it hurts. You lose your friends, it hurts. But you know, you just try to do so in a wise way. Build that intimacy as you're building commitment. Yeah, I hope that helps. I really don't know. Yes, again, please feel free to unmute, jump in, whatever else you want to be. Unless someone's jumping in, it's got the next question coming in. How can you be a community to a friend seeking relationship? As in, how do you know to tell them to wait, go for it? How do you counsel someone in a who's thinking about being in a relationship? I don't know if you want to start or if you want me to. You want me to start? I can start.
You can start, yeah.
So this is kind of related with like, you know, be the person, or, you know, I forget what phrasing Pastor Pete used. I hand wrote notes for this. I don't know why. I usually type everything, but you know, be the right person before finding, or more than finding. I don't know what he said, but hopefully you all wrote it down. So for me, if another brother talks to me, then I'm going to talk with him through like, hey, where do you think you are? Where do you think? Again, this is where personal relationship helps a lot. You know, where do you think you are in terms of character, commitment, responsibility? Where do you think? You know, how do you think you measure up? And I'm always very clear with the guy. You whatever you think 100% is 100% ready. That's not a thing. I'm not 100% ready. I have a lot more to grow in my character. I have a lot more to grow in responsibility. I still have a lot more to grow right now. And so it's okay to say, I'm not 100, whatever I think 100% is, you know, whatever. But I think there are some helpful wisdom things that I would counsel them in. And so you would know this person better than I do, but, you know, are they, you know, if they're flunking out of school, like that's not a time to start a relationship. If they're going through severe life circumstances, right? Hey, you know, you just got over a health issue in your family, like a very severe health issue in your family. It's taken a toll on you. Like take some time to recover before you do that. Like you guys know and love them. But I'm thinking, okay, character-wise, are they growing, right? I would say, especially for brothers, if they're addicted to like porn, I mean, like if they're not just struggling, but actually like actively addicted, I would say maybe you should deal with that, or not maybe, you should deal with that first. That's like one like very severe like wall I tend to put up. But in everything else, like, are they growing? Right? Are they fighting? Are they aware of some of their weak spots and trying to fight it? If some of them have anger issues, but they're aware of it and they're trying to work on it, yeah, you know, that's growth, that's progress. They were to the point where they're just frustrated instead of lashing out. I used to lash out a lot. It was very wrong. It was very simple, but I used to act out in my anger a lot. I've learned to process a lot better and learn to deal with them in less aggressive, non-aggressive ways. But is there growth in character, commitment, responsibility? So I would work with them to say, well, are there any things that I see that are missing or wrong or whatever else? And then if so, for me, speaking on a brother's perspective, also trying to see in a very kind of roundabout way, not in a gossipy way, trying to find out how the person they're interested is doing. More so for the sake of, is there something major in their life going on? So I'll say this. So if a brother comes up to me, hey, I like this girl, I'll go to their mentor, discipler, some older sister that's discipling them. Said, hey, how is so-and-so doing? Is she okay? And then if she comes back to me and says, she actually already just got asked out by a guy, and it's not public yet because they're still trying to figure it out. But then I'd be like, oh, that would just be unnecessary. Or, oh, actually, she just had someone in her family pass away. Can you give her a few months or something like that? But trying to go roundabout, maybe not even specifying the guy's name, but just trying to find out what I can. So helping the brother in terms of being the right person, right? As long as they're growing, great. As long as there's not a severe life circumstance, like again flunking out of school or whatever else, great. And then trying to do some back work, not everything. I'm not going to find out if she likes him back or something like that, but just like, hey, someone's interested. Are they in the place to be asked? very, very broad strokes.
I think to that, I would just add two more things, I guess. One is like, I think if like as the person's friend, one thing you should not put on yourself is you're not the voice of God to them. And I think sometimes that's important to remember. Like you don't hold ultimate power over whether they should or should not go for it. And you should not put that pressure on yourself. Because ultimately that is 100% the other person's step of faith that they have to decide on taking with God. And you can be a sounding board, and please do, and hopefully a source of accountability. Because probably like, you know, if this person is already friends with the person that they like, then they probably do need some measure of accountability just to like make sure they're not crossing boundaries and they're being honorable and things like that. So that's one big thing I would say. I think the other thing that I generally tell people if they're coming to me, whether it's like a brother saying, hey, I'm interested in this sister that you're somewhat close to, I just wanted to see what you have to say, or a sister's coming to me considering a relationship, I think something that I also generally tell people is like to think about how well do you know yourself. And I say this because I think when you start entering into a relationship with another person, like a lot of who you are becomes exposed. And I think that's also a lot of why like Pastor Pete talked so much about like you have to like take the time to grow to be the person that you should be. Yeah, like a successful relationship. I think Pete said this years ago or something. Our founding pastor before he went to Hong Kong, he would say like a marriage is actually a relationship of two sinners learning to forgive each other, because stuff will be exposed for sure. And if you don't know that going into the relationship, then you're in for a rude awakening, and that's going to be really hard. And so I tend to usually talk through the other person, like how well do you know yourself? Do you like know some of your weaknesses? And again, like P. Josh was just saying, you're never going to reach 100%, but you should hopefully be growing and realizing, oh my gosh, I need the grace of God. And I'm not entirely sure why, but these scenarios tend to trip me up. I have these insecurities in my life, and there's at least some measure of like the gospel is being known in your life, and you're realizing the areas where you need a savior. And those are things that I tend to look for with the person when they come and talk to me. So
yeah. Okay, what we're gonna do is Benny, if you could put the link in the chat. We do have a follow-up form for us. We're not ending yet. I just wanted to make sure because some people might end up dropping off. And so if you could fill out this feedback form, that would help us. We'll go officially until 9:40. Just to, you know, some people feel awkward leaving in the middle or whatever. So, I mean, if you want to drop out at any time, you can. Please don't feel bad about it. But we'll go officially until 9:40. But we'll stay on as long as people want to talk. Whatever. I mean, if it ends up just being you and you have a very specific, detailed personal question that you want to ask, then you get the privilege of asking it, and we'll try to give you as best one-on-one counseling as we can. But regardless, so we'll end it officially at 9:40. If you could fill out that feedback form, that would help us a lot, just in terms of what was helpful, what was not. Format, because if we do seminars in the future, format. So even if you were at the last one and you have ideas or thoughts, you can put those. I think there's something about format or something in there as well. But if you could fill that out, that would help. We would greatly appreciate that. Cool. Anyone follow-up questions? Want to jump in? Unmute. Good for now. Okay, again, Benny's always there. He can be your anonymous funnel. Next question. Should you not pursue a relationship if you're shifting life stages, i.e. if we're both graduating or one is going on to career? It's funny because I know, I mean, we have a couple friends who have done this, and some of them are married. They're fine. I would say that it depends. That's what you want to hear from a Q&A, wishy-washy answers. It depends. Where are both of you? Can you, and I saw, I don't know exactly what it was, but I saw a question about long distance further down. It really depends. Actually, your old mentor, Katie and Sinsar. Since I was in life group with Sinsar, great friend, great rock climber. I don't know why I feel like you got a lot of people into rock climbing when he was here.
Yeah.
And then Katie Chang, I actually went to India with her. She was your mentor. Didn't they start the relationship long distance?
So she went to Germany to work for a few months. It was like an exchange thing that her workplace had, where they would send you to a sister company to work for a few months. Right before she left, he asked her, "Would you like to get to know me?" Like it was very similar to our arrangement, except long distance. So it was like 3 months. The whole entire time she was overseas in Germany, I think she was like Skyping him once a week to like have these really intense conversations about calling and and then I think when she came back from Germany, they gave the answer. And at that time he was job searching, so he didn't know where he was going to end up. And so she knew saying yes to him meant the possibility of having to move eventually if he found a job somewhere else. And so a couple months after they officially started dating, and he actually got a job in Florida. And so the majority of their dating relationship was long distance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's possible. If you know Katie and Sinsar, you know how highly everyone would say that's okay. They're great people. They are both great people. Just great. I don't know. That's yeah. So they can handle it. I don't know if that would have worked well for us actually, because as we're getting started, actually just personal interaction. We both value personal time. The love language is it personal time?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, personal time. We both have that as a love language. So if that was virtual, I don't know if that would have pulled off as well. Like we would have got to know each other and become friends, but I don't feel like we would have made as deep a connection as we did. And to say that that would have been okay for us. So yeah, it all depends. Are you able to handle it? Is it something that you're is going to pull at your soul and wither, draw you into a withering hole of despair and oh my gosh, I never get a chance to see her or him or all that, it's hard. And so you know your tendency. Character-wise, I don't know if there's much more than being in a relationship in general that I would add. It's really just more how are both of you wired? Can you handle it? Whether it's for long distance or for shifting life stages. Yeah, I was gonna make a bad joke. That's fine.
I think like something else I would say is if you're starting a relationship and from the start it's going to be long distance, it's going to probably be hard. Is all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Like I have two really good friends, Hong Yun and Min Hee,
Yeah.
who
Oh yeah, great.
They led a life group together. And then at the very end, after life group was done, the guy asked the girl out. So they knew each other pretty well, but right after he asked her out, he had to leave because he had accepted a job in Korea. And so time zone plus like being very far away, and they started the relationship that way. I mean, they're married now. They're very happy, but it was very, very hard. And these were two people who were like, it was several years after undergrad. They had both worked. They were both mature, growing Christians, and it was still hard. So I think just know that like you're going to be asking of a lot, especially if you start the relationship. If you have like at least some time together before you shift into long distance, then I think that's a different story too. It's not sometimes as hard, but if you're going to start at long distance, and especially if you have time zone differences too, like, yeah, it's just rough. Like you spend time always like 6-12 hours apart, so
Yeah, it's hard. Long distance, grad school, med school. Should I start a relationship before getting into med school? It's just hard. You have different constraints on you. I mean, you have different pressures on you. It's just hard. And so, whether you're able to deal with that well or not. Nothing additional with that character or anything like that. It's just, can you handle it? Yeah. Unless there's any feedback, follow-up questions. What does the time period look like when you're interested in someone, but you see that they still need to grow in character? Interesting. It's interesting because I don't know how you would be able to
Maybe
gauge
the
that.
discipler said,
Sure.
sorry, you gotta wait.
Sure.
Or your discipler said that.
Yeah. I'm going to start with, while I'm thinking about other stuff, just start with a lot of prayer. Pray for them. So pray for them that they would grow, but pray for yourself too, that, you'd have discernment to what's next and how to move forward. I would say watch yourself, and I'm speaking both to, well, I'm going to speak from a brother's perspective. I'm assuming it applies to both. Watch yourself, guard your heart. Don't let yourself fall into what am I trying to say? Don't let yourself fall into like emotional, like for me, so I don't know if this is relatable or not. For me, I get caught up in my head a lot. I'll start fantasizing. I'll start like, okay, when they're ready, like, oh my gosh, like, we'll be such a great couple, and we'll go to farmers markets together and watch wrestling together. And I don't know how a couple does both of those things, but whatever, I start getting in my own head, and my heart goes to a place of, I'm really just jumping the gun, like getting to a place where we're not imagining things that that aren't. And so do what you can for that. It depends per person. If that means being supported from a distance instead of as friends like you might have been, I mean, you have to know your own heart for that. But that might be something that you consider more distance. You might consider just never being alone or never talking outside of. Again, this is why I love Shinshin, because she helped me have some kind of contact with Erica, because one-on-one contact with Erica would not have gone anywhere. If you look at our messages before we started, it was all church staff stuff. That was it. Every text message, every Slack or Teams message, everything that we sent was pure church business. Of course, there would be no interest in, but. I don't know. I don't know if you have anything to add.
No, I think ultimately, I feel like you're going to just have to surrender it, is I feel like what the answer would be, without knowing what's going to happen. And maybe God will move your heart to someone else because actually you weren't, like you were never supposed to end up with this person anyway. Or maybe years will go by and dang it, your heart won't change. And turns out actually this is the person, and I think that's something that you just have to like continually surrender and do what Josh was saying in terms of like guarding your heart too. I would say like it's good that it's good to recognize that in this kind of situation. And I think it's very honoring to say, hey, although I might be ready to pursue a relationship, I don't think the other person is yet. That's actually a very honoring observation to make, I think. And the selfish thing to do would be to pursue it anyway. But to be able to say, you know what, I don't think it would be good for the other person, I think it is hard, and that takes a lot of like dying to self, basically. So I think ultimately it's just surrendering and not knowing how God's going to do it. Like I think about, so Pastor Seth, the pastor who founded Bay Ann Arbor Church, for those of you who don't know who he is, he tells the story of how he was actually very interested in another sister and was like even seriously considering like pulling the trigger and asking her out. But then as he was still praying about it and seeing if she was in a good place and things, he got to know the sister that would actually be his wife. And it was just like complete switch over. And then he ended up asking her out instead. So you never know, I guess bottom line is like what God will do, and all you can do is surrender. And if you recognize that this person is not ready to be in a relationship, the right thing to do is to say, I will not pursue it, and stick to that conviction and look for the accountability to allow you to do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's where, Christian love has to trump romantic feeling. As much affection and feeling you might have for a person, if what you feel like is good for the other person, if we ever felt like it was, well, I don't know, good for us to end, in a godly sense, in a Christian sense, like, oh, actually, our callings, we're getting clarity about it. We're not supposed to be together. As hard as it would be, I feel like.
I hope we'd be able to say.
Okay.
I'm gonna grab water while you.
Okay. Again, follow up on mute, if you ever want to. Even if you do start with marriage as the end goal, how do you prepare for the aftermath of the potential of a breakup? I don't know if we've addressed this already. It's kind of that thought of like, intimacy, and
Sure.
again, it is a risk. Breakup is a risk. Don't be more intimate than your commitment, or your whatever. Yeah, I mean, you cannot. This is a little bit. No. Sorry, I'm filtering myself. It's hard to do anything worthwhile without the potential for hurt. Even for us getting married, if really, God forbid, if something happened to Erica and something like bus crashing into her, or plane falling out of the sky. I don't know why that's what my mind goes to. That's pain. If my whole point in life is to avoid pain, I mean, I'll lock myself in a bomb shelter and have meal rations and live by myself, not get close to anyone because they might be taken away from me. Like that's not life. There's wisdom again, progressing in that intimacy as you're progressing in commitment, but yeah, I don't know. You also have to be ready for it. Also, even while you're in the relationship, building your security in God all the more. Because like even Pastor Pete sharing that story about what Gina said, I don't know what she said, but even Gina, saying the thing that really hurt him, like that's gonna happen. And just because you feel like you're secure enough to start dating doesn't mean you shouldn't grow more secure in God as you're progressing in life. And so just do that more and more. Try to honor intimacy, commitment, all of that. Whatever happens.
Yeah. And if this question is more geared towards like how do you break up well?
Oh, sure.
I don't know. I feel like we can have a separate, almost like whole conversation about that too, if you want. So whoever, if you're interested in that, you can like.
Oh, breaking up well is hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
Breaking up is hard to do. Breaking up well is, oh wow, that's tough. I guess we could try one more. It's 9:35. We can try maybe one or two more, depending on how this goes. What does community look like in the context of a long distance relationship? The concern is that the person and I will have two different communities. Yeah, I mean that's reality. One person's here and another person has a different church in a different state or country or whatever else. It happens. I would say sometimes it can be helpful to introduce the person to the other community if they don't already have connect. Like Hong Yun and Minnie, right? Hong Yun was part of our church. He was an upper level leader for a number of years here. He knew our community, so he still had connections. People still knew the both of them here. That was fine. I don't know if Minnie got introduced to a church in Korea or stuff like that, but that might be a step. Introducing, whether it's take a flight, go visit them and then get introduced to the church community and have people check it out, or the other thing. For me, actually, community also involves my family, because I know I'm blessed in this way, but my family is actually really strong for me, and especially my dad's side, more my mom's side too, but especially my dad's side, they're also really strong believers for the most part. And so for me, it was really important that Erica get a chance to meet them. Right? And that's actually, a different community, but that's actually one of my communities, my family. And so it's really important for her to get introduced. They some of them met her before we were official and before we knew we wanted to commit, to a relationship. So, God bless Erica for doing that. but yeah, that was important, you know, for them to get to know her and not like say, oh, you should stop dating her or whatever else, but I want to meet. You know, do they get along? Do they, you know, what do they think? What do they all think? Can I see? Oh, here's the other part too. Can I see her as part of my family? Like, not that that would be a deal breaker, but like that would be something that we'd have to talk about. Wow, personality wise, it just does not click. And are you sure you want to are you sure you want to deal with my family? You know, like imagine a whole family of me's, 30 of me's in one family.
Yep,
You know,
yep.
like that would be a lot for anybody. But yeah, so that's one potential helpful thing, introducing them to, you know, your other communities. Just hard.
I'd also say like in life, eventually this will happen. So like I'm assuming this is like you start dating and right now maybe you're both here. So like Harvest is your shared community, but you're no longer gonna have that next year. It's like, I guess my assumption, it's not that you're starting from a place of two completely separate communities. So I would say like even though both me and P. Josh are very rooted here, so he talked about the need for me to meet his family. What was extremely important for me was for him to meet my friends. So like I don't know how this worked out. I have friends actually who are, none of them, most of my closest friends are no longer in Ann Arbor actually. Some of them are actually really good friends I've had since high school. Some are friends I've had since college. So he started laughing because all in one summer, the summer we became official, somehow they all paraded through Ann Arbor. And it was not planned. And the poor P. Josh had so many meals with them while he was doing CSMP too. It was great. So I think, I guess I say this to be like, the truth is ultimately like you will have to introduce each other to different communities in life anyway, long distance or otherwise. And it is a blessing that right now you are both in HMCC and you have some shared community because you have that as a basis to work off of. And like if you start from a place of like two completely separate communities and no one knows you both, then I think like that's harder. So being able to like, okay, that is not correct, Kyle. Anyway, anyway, so I think to be able to like continue to like intentionally merge your communities is something that as you grow in your relationship, you will also have to learn to do. And as a couple, to be able to have community to walk you through your relationship is something you will just have to like grow in having. So.
Oh, sorry. I was typing CSMP jokes in the thing. Sorry, I'll stop that. It is 9:40. I really want to end with this one question.
Yeah,
because I want to make a joke.
Yeah. No.
Is it bad? Is it bad as a girl to call out a guy if you know they're leading you on, but they don't have any intention to be in a relationship at the moment? I would say do so on Insta story.
Oh my God.
Just broadcast it to everybody. Just call them out by name and say what they're doing and show screenshots of their text messages and just do it. Just do it.
Okay, don't do that.
Sorry. No, I'm a pastor. That is my sense of humor. Please, I'm joking.
Oh Lord. So I would say that needs to be done with a lot of wisdom. But yes, someone needs to do it. I have so many thoughts about this question. Oh Lord. So, and if you have more questions, like follow up, or you want to talk one-on-one, I'm also available, and I'm sure P. Josh would be too. But I would say, so some things to think is like, sometimes a guy, bless his heart, does not know he's leading you on. So you have to also like, P. Josh was like, maybe not. But sometimes I think maybe they don't, and you don't want to come on. There's a difference between like, they are literally leading you on and a terrible human being and they know what they're doing versus they're just unaware and you need to educate them. So it's important to know those differences. And then I would say the other thing for you to do is to like, in accordance with knowing into which category they fall, like you should have that conversation in an honoring way if you can. So it shouldn't be like you go in, guns raised, you're ready to like kill the poor guy necessarily. But yeah, I think sometimes it's just like, hey, like, I need to draw some boundaries. Or even sometimes it's not you're like, I don't even know if a conversation is needed, but you just need to be firm in saying no to him so that he doesn't continue to cross your boundaries. And I think there's ways a girl can also nicely say no and like figure out ways to like still like be true to your boundaries without hurting the other guy. And I would say if you think that the guy is maliciously leading you on, hopefully you should be able to within community also figure out a way for brothers to walk him through that ultimately too. Those are the things I would have to say about that. I don't know if you have anything else to add.
No, yeah, I think that's good. Starting with the benefit of a doubt is always a gracious thing, but you know, we're kind of running on out of time. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pray for us. We'll stop the recording. After we stop the recording, if some of you want to get directly in touch with either of us, we'll put our email addresses in the chat, and so you can contact us that way. I know my email address is on the website, but hers used to be. It's not anymore. But we'll drop that in the chat so you guys can reach out to us individually if you want to, or even if you just want to say hi, we'll say hi. But let me actually. Would you mind praying for everyone
Sure.
here as we
Yeah,
wrap up
yeah.
our time?
I can pray. Father God, I just thank you so much for this time to just talk about a topic that I do believe is important and is on your heart. And Lord, I just want to pray that every single one of us that were on this call tonight, may we ultimately be able to be those people who can raise up future families that are gospel centered and redemptive and that reflect you. And we would have marriages that reflect you, not because of any wisdom that we have, but because Christ is so alive in us, in our identity and in who we are. And so, Lord, I pray that you would just really do that work in each and every single one of us that are on this call tonight. I pray that ultimately you would just really call us to be people who deeply know our need for the gospel and are also able to extend that to others as well. And as we reflect that gospel identity, we would just really be able to grow to become those husbands and wives and mothers and fathers one day that can just really raise up godly families and be godly examples to others and draw others to come to know Christ. And so I pray that tonight, of all the words that were spoken, may you just leave in our hearts the ones that are from you and are seeds to be planted into our lives. And I pray that it would just bear that fruit of continuing to grow us to become more and more like Christ. And so, Lord, I pray that you would do this in our hearts. And I pray all these in your son's precious name. Amen.
Amen.